NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It keeps every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more juice to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morisuti with you here on the podcast. And Ben Danford actually making the news. Little headline news for Ben Danford. He ends up getting invited to the Rookie Showcase, which you used to attend. It used to be here in Toronto. It's no longer here anymore. And I know you're pretty bummed about that.
I've been bummed about that, yeah.
Yeah, but Ben Danford gets an opportunity to go to the Rookie Showcase. I guess that goes to show that, you know, the league believes Ben Danford is an NHL player and a future, you know, piece of this Leafs blue line at some point. So let's do this. Cosign, no sign. Ben Danford will be a staple on this Leafs blue line within the next 2 years.
2 years.
So not this year necessarily, but for sure by next year he'll put himself on the Maple Leafs roster.
I'm gonna no sign it for now because I feel like he's just like he's just starting to show what he can do. Like this past year was a good year. He was named the top defenseman in the OHL. I think top defensive defenseman, just so I can clarify that in the OHL. I think just because of his age, I think they probably want to see him take a more natural development when he comes to, especially defensemen. They take a lot longer to develop. And I think you probably want to see him play in the AHL for a little bit if he needs a little bit of that seasoning. But I do expect him at some point to play a pretty big role.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Leafs roster too, there's just not a lot of space for him. You know, like they have what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have all 6 of their current defensemen locked in this year and next year. So someone's going to have to move around, or maybe someone gets pushed out potentially. Now, they do not have an abundance of right shot defensemen. I will say that. Could they possibly use a Ben Danford on their third pair and move out a guy like Simon Benoit? It's possible that Benoit could, lose out the job to Ben Danford if he comes and impresses in camp. I think he'll be given an opportunity to. Maybe he doesn't do it this year, but I think there's a shot next season we could see Ben Danford in a regular role. We'll see how things play out between now and then. There's obviously, tons of work that could be done to this blue line. But yeah, I think it's very possible that by next season, at the very least, Danford could be a fixture in the Maple Leafs blue line. It's weird when you take a guy in the first round and you're thinking, we won't see him for 3 years. You hope you'd see him a little bit quicker than that. But to your point, it's a slower development for defensemen and defensive defensemen at that. So perhaps it may take a couple of years, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good player, that he's a bust. Just takes defensemen longer to develop than it does forwards like Cowan or like Matthew Nyes. Do have to keep that in mind. All right, cosign no sign for you, Dave.
So my cosign no sign, we see Easton Cowan get a prominent role during training camp.
Oh, cosign. Absolutely cosign. I think they have to give him an opportunity to see what he can do. Like, he's their top prospect, and, I think that he's earned a chance to showcase himself to the team and to the coaching staff that he worked on what they had asked him to work on last year in London, right? Like, that Craig Berube wanted to work on his off-puck skills. He wanted to work on his puck protection. The couple games that I watched at the London Knights, like, his puck protection definitely was impressive. Now, that was against OHLers, not NHLers, so there's definitely a difference. So we'll see what it looks like, when games start in preseason. I'm sure he'll get a long look, but I do think for sure that they would love for Easton Cowan to be NHL ready, to be able to take on a role, because there still is a hole in the top 6. I think we can all agree that there is a hole. If he can fill it, if he can prove that he can fill it, not just be given the spot, but actually take the spot, I think that'd be fantastic. And I do believe that he'll get every opportunity in the world to compete for that spot. Because, I mean, outside, I think there's 5 spoken for spots in the top 6 right now, like completely spoken for. Matthews, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, and probably Michelli are the 5 guys in the top 6 that are spoken for. That leaves guys like Nick Robertson, Max Domi, and probably Easton Cowan as that third guy who can make a run at that other top 6 spot. And there's even, some reports out there that they could still be interested in Jack Roslovic, but until that happens, I think that Easton Cowan certainly will get a big, long look in camp as a potential piece of this puzzle for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I just think that people say they need to add a top 6 winger. They really need to add some skill to that top 6. Maybe they feel like Easton Cowan can push for it. Now they could go and still sign Jack Roslovic. Roslovic can be, but like we had this conversation before. It's like then you're adding another Max Domi type player to the list. You've already got Max Domi to kind of do that. Now Roslovic is a right shot, and maybe that's something that they view as something that they need. But I've been adamant in saying you have to start seeing your younger players, push this group forward, right? We're constantly talking about how they need to add this, add that, go and trade for this, try to sign that. Once in a while, you need to also say, well, you've also got this player that you put in a lot of time in drafting and developing to actually, take a big step forward for you. And so I do think that that's where a player like Easton Cowan needs to step up in that, and show that he can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me be clear. I'm not saying I think Cowan will make the team or is a lock to be a top 6 player for the Leafs, but I do think that he'll be given an opportunity to prove himself at the very least in training camp. All right, cosign, no sign, Dave. Matthew Nyes will score at least 75 points this season.
Sorry, say that one more time just so I make sure you heard it properly.
Matthew Nyes will score at least 75 points this season. 75 or more points for Matthew Nyes.
75 or more.
Yeah, he had 58 a year ago.
I think I co-sign that.
Yeah? That big of a jump, 58 to 75?
Well, you're trying to think about, I think he gets on the power play in some way, shape, or form. Like, you got Matthews, Nylander, Tavares. That's kind of your top 3 forwards. I think they might go 5 forwards again if they don't feel they have a defenseman to go on the. I think he'll be the net front guy. On the power play.
I think for sure he will be.
Yeah.
I think there's no question that he's going to be on PP1. He was very effective, being a net front guy, whether it was tipping pucks or it was pouncing on rebounds. Matthew Nyes certainly proved that he could be an effective player